You were always too sensitive, Pumpkin. Kids forget. That was the postcard on top. My father, Martin Larkspur, stopped being my father the week I turned 8. 7 months later, he drove me to his mother's house and left me there like an unwanted dog. He didn't visit, not at 12, not at 16, not at 18. For nearly 22 years, he sent 2 pieces of paper. Neither one asked how I was. Now I was 7 months pregnant. And he had sent 30 pastel postcards in 60 days, asking to meet my baby girl. Like nothing had happened. I didn't reply. I showed up to my bookstore on the morning of my 30th birthday with a small box, a cedar box, 12 inches by 8, hand-cut, smelling faintly of varnish. His smile cracked first, before anyone said a word. If this story is already hitting you in the chest, please take a second to like and subscribe so I know to keep telling them. And drop your location and local time in the comments below. I love knowing where in the world you're listening from. I'm Hattie Larkspur, 30, and this is the story of the box my grandparents kept for 19 years and the smile that broke when my father saw it. Let's go back to January, 2 months before that birthday, when the first postcard slid through the bookstore mail slot. The first one came on a Tuesday. I was kneeling in the children's section, restocking Charlotte's Web. The bell over the door rang. Our regular postman, Eli, dropped the day's mail on the front counter and waved through the front window. Daniel was at the register sorting receipts. "You've got a pink one," he said. "Cherry blossom print. Looks like a wedding invitation." I straightened. I brushed the dust off my apron. I walked over. The bump pressed against the counter when I leaned in. It wasn't a wedding invitation. It was a postcard. Watercolor cherry blossoms on the front, handwritten on the back in a careful slant I had not seen in 17 years. "Dear Hattie, can we start over for the baby?" "Dad." I stood there for a moment. Daniel didn't speak, he just watched my face. "From him?" he said. "From him. You don't have to open it, we can throw it out." "It's already open," he sent a postcard. I tucked it under the till. I went back to the children's section. Charlotte's Web got a little dusty again from how long I stayed kneeling beside the shelf. That was Tuesday. By Friday, there were 4 more. "Hattie, dear, you're going to be a mother. You should think about family." "Dad, your mother would have wanted this. Your child will need her grandfather." "Dad, don't punish a baby for the past." "Dad, kids forget, Pumpkin, they always do." "Dad." I lined them up on the back office shelf where the rolled posters lived. I did not throw any of them away. By the end of January, there were 18. By the second week of February, 25. By Valentine's Day, 30. The watercolors changed. Daffodils, robins, wedding cakes, baby booties. Then back to cherry blossoms, because he had run out of variety and was repeating. Each one had a Charlotte, North Carolina postmark. Each one used the same soft voice. "I was lost in grief, you have to understand. My mother was the one who insisted on raising you. Your grandparents would have hurt you. I had to protect you." That last one, "protect you," was the only line that made me put a postcard down without finishing it. Daniel and I sat at the kitchen table one Sunday night, with all 30 laid out like tarot cards. "Why now?" he asked. He found out about the baby. He's known for months. The announcement was August. The shop ran a feature in October. He could have written then. Something changed in January. I tapped the first one. The cherry blossom. Something between Christmas and the second week of January. Daniel reached across the table and put his hand over mine. He didn't say anything. He just waited. I'm married to a man who waits. The next afternoon, a thick brown envelope arrived at the bookstore. Heavy paper. A real return address in dark blue type in the upper left corner. Atticus Thorne, attorney at law, Greensboro, North Carolina. I had never heard the name. The envelope was certified. I signed for it. I carried it to the back office. I sat down on the second-hand armchair we kept for our weekend children's storyteller. I held the envelope on my lap for a long minute before I opened it. Inside, there was a single sheet of typed paper. Cream cardstock. Heavy weight. A real letterhead. It began, "Dear Ms. Larkspur, I represented your grandparents, Edmund and Florence Ashby, for 38 years. They have been searching for you since 2004. I read the line 3 times. Then I put the letter down. I looked at the pile of pink, blue, and yellow postcards on the desk. Cherry blossoms. Daffodils. Booties. I didn't know it yet. But the timing of those 2 stacks of mail was not coincidence. The morning my mother died was a Saturday in late March 2004. I had turned 8 that week. I woke up to silence. That was unusual. Mom always had NPR on in the kitchen by 6 on Saturdays, classical at low volume. The radio was off. I padded down the stairs in flannel pajamas. The kitchen light was on. Orange juice was spilled across the linoleum. The glass had rolled under the table. My mother, Lorelei, was slumped beside the toaster with her arm bent in a way arms don't bend. I was 8. I picked up the phone. I dialed 911. I said the words I had practiced once at school. My mother needs help. She isn't moving. By the time the ambulance came, the paramedic took one look at her and said something quiet to his partner. The other one stepped forward and crouched in front of me. He said, "Sweetheart, what's your daddy's name?" That was when I understood. The medical examiner later called it DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis. My mother had stopped taking her insulin properly. They never said why. I think she was tired. She had been tired for a long time. The funeral was small. I wore a navy dress with white tights and shiny shoes. My mother's parents flew in from Greensboro. My grandfather Edmund, my grandmother Florence. They held me so hard at the gravesite that the buttons on Edmund's coat left little marks on my cheek. They were the only ones who cried out loud. My father did not cry. He stood with his hand on my shoulder for the photographer. That night, my grandparents asked if I could come home with them, just for the week. Just until Martin found his footing. He said no. My father had a sister and a mother. He had family on his side. He needed to keep me close. That was a Saturday. 7 months later, on a Saturday in October, my father drove me from Asheville to Charlotte, 4 hours east. He said, "Pumpkin, I have to go away for work for a few weeks. You're going to stay with Grandma Cornelia. Just for a little while." He carried my green duffel bag up to her front porch. He set it down. He hugged me with one arm. He drove away. He never came back. 6 months later, I read the wedding announcement in the Charlotte Observer, in the section my grandmother kept open on the kitchen table while she drank her coffee. Martin Larkspur and Patricia Brennan, married at the Charlotte Country Club. They were honeymooning in Cabo. He looked younger in the picture. He was smiling the way he had smiled at the photographer the year before. Cornelia did not say anything. She turned the page. I grew up in her attic room. The ceiling slanted. The radiator clanked at 3 a.m. I ate my dinner after she finished hers, at a small folding table she set up by the back door so she wouldn't have to look at me chew. She called me, "Your kind of child," like that was a kind of child. When I was 9, I asked if I could call my grandparents in Greensboro. She said, "They don't want you anymore, Hattie. Be grateful I keep you." I wrote them letters. 7, the first year. I addressed them carefully. I copied the return address off an old Christmas card I had hidden in my closet. I gave the letters to Cornelia to mail. I did not see what she did with them. She had a steel wastebasket beside the desk in her sewing room. I think they went there. When I was 10, I had no birthday. Cornelia gave me a Webster's dictionary she had picked up at a yard sale and a Hallmark card with someone else's child's name scratched out and replaced in ballpoint. When I was 12, I folded my paper napkin into a swan and sang happy birthday to myself very softly so she wouldn't hear me through the kitchen wall. When I was 16, I asked Cornelia for the kitchen phone only once just to try. She picked up the receiver and slammed it back into the wall mount so hard the bell rang inside the plaster. "They never wrote you back, Hattie. They forgot you. Don't be a fool twice in one lifetime." I never asked again. There were small kindnesses inside those 10 years. None of them came from inside the house. My 8th grade English teacher, Ms. Pendleton, noticed when I wore the same gray cardigan 4 days in a row in October. She brought me a thermos of soup the next Monday and said it was from the staff lounge that nobody had eaten. She did this every Monday for 2 years. She never asked why. She wrote one sentence on the inside of my final report card in pencil so it could be erased if anyone checked. "You will write a good life, Hattie. Keep going." There was also my Aunt Bernadette. She was my father's younger sister. She lived 2 streets over from Cornelia in Charlotte. She had 4 children of her own and a husband who worked nights at a printing plant. She came over once a month on a Sunday afternoon to drink coffee with Cornelia. She always slipped me something small, a packet of mechanical pencils, a paperback from a yard sale, once a strip of stickers shaped like maple leaves. She never spoke against Cornelia in the kitchen. She never said the word grandmother in front of me. But when she hugged me goodbye in the hallway, she held on for a half-second longer than she needed to. I understood that she was afraid. I did not blame her then. I do not blame her now. But I also understood, even at 12, that fear is a kind of choice. I kept one thing through all of it. A small paperback Edmund had given me when I was 6, the Christmas before my mother died. A child's garden of verses. He had written inside the front cover, "For my Hattie who loves words." Grandpa E. I read it under the slanted ceiling at night. By the time I was 18, my own handwriting filled the margins. It is the only book I refuse to lend out at the bookstore. It sits behind glass beside the register. If you grew up with someone who reminded you every day that you were the lucky one for being kept, drop a single word in the comments below. The word they made you carry. I read every one. When I turned 18, I packed 2 suitcases and stepped onto a bus to Asheville. Without saying goodbye, I told myself I was leaving them behind. I did not know they had already been fighting for me for 10 years. UNC Asheville gave me a scholarship I had not expected. An English lit professor named Dr. Halsey wrote me a recommendation after she read a paper I turned in on Eudora Welty. The scholarship paid tuition and $1,000 a semester for books. I lived in a dorm with a girl named Marisol who played mandolin and cried at sad commercials. She was the first person in 18 years to ask me what I wanted for my birthday. I told her I wanted a slice of carrot cake. She bought me an entire carrot cake from Annie's Bakery on Charlotte Street. I cried in the dorm hallway. She did not ask why. Sophomore year, I started working at Malaprop's bookstore downtown. They paid $8 an hour and let me eat the day's leftover pastries. I read every staff recommendation card on the shelves until I could write my own. In March of my junior year, my Aunt Bernadette called me from Charlotte. Cornelia had had a stroke in her kitchen on a Tuesday. She had died on Thursday in the hospital. There would be a service Saturday. I did not go. 2 weeks later, Bernadette mailed me a small box of Cornelia's things. A wristwatch I did not recognize. 2 photo albums I did not open until later. A locked drawer key. No photographs of my mother. No photographs of my mother's parents. Nothing of Lorelei at all. There was one envelope inside the locked drawer. A wedding announcement. Patricia and Martin, 2005, the Charlotte Country Club. Cornelia had clipped it from the Observer and saved it. There was also a small folded sheet of paper Cornelia had marked, "Do not give Hattie." It was in her handwriting. I read it twice and put it in a different drawer in my dorm. I did not understand the words yet. One postcard arrived from my father after Cornelia's funeral. Plain white, hospital issue. "Sorry to hear about Mom. Take care of yourself, kid." Dad. That was the second thing he had sent me in almost 22 years. I graduated in May of 2018. Magna cum laude. The provost shook my hand. Marisol cheered. Nobody in the audience was there for me. I moved into a studio apartment on Lexington Avenue. I took a job as the assistant manager at a smaller bookstore down the block from Malaprop's. I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Wren for what she eventually called complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It took me 3 years to say the words, "My mother died," without my voice doing the thing it had always done. The slight closing in the throat, the squeezing breath. Dr. Wren let me practice. She told me I did not have to forgive anyone. She told me the goal of healing was not reconciliation, it was choosing my own life. I met Daniel Easton in 2020 at a community event called Books for the Forest. The Pisgah Rangers wanted children's stories read at a fundraiser. He was the wildlife biologist organizing it. He stood at the back of the room while I read Owl Moon out loud. After I finished, he walked over and said, "You're the first reader who didn't rush the ending." I went out to dinner with him the next week. He waited the way he still waits. We were engaged by the end of 2022. We married in June of 2024 in a small garden at Lake Susan in Black Mountain, North Carolina. I did not know it then, but my grandparents had bought a cabin 2 miles up the mountain from that garden in 1968. In January of 2025, Daniel and I opened Thornberry Books on Lexington Avenue. In August of 2025, I learned I was pregnant. Daniel cried for the first time I had ever seen. 3 months later, The first postcard came. I should have known they always come back when they smell something to take. I opened the envelope in the back office of the bookstore on a Wednesday afternoon in late January. Daniel was on the phone with a sales rep at the front. The wood stove was ticking. I read the line again. They have been searching for you since 2004. I called the number on the letterhead. A woman with a gentle voice answered. Thorne and Associates, this is Pearl. How may I help? This is Hattie Larkspur. I'm calling Atticus Thorne. There was a small intake of breath, like someone had been waiting for a phone to ring for a long time. One moment, dear. Atticus came on the line within 10 seconds. His voice was thin, warm, faintly Carolinian. Hattie, thank you for calling. I've been hoping to reach you. I'm so sorry about how long it took. I gripped the desk. I was not good at this kind of voice yet. You said you represented my grandparents for 38 years. Edmund Ashby was my first client when I opened my practice in 1987. Are they still alive? There was a pause. No, dear, Edmund passed in December of 2020. Florence, in February of 2023. Florence's last instruction to me on her deathbed was, find Hattie. Because the old custody file still listed Martin as your legal parent, I mailed him a formal estate search notice on January 3rd and asked whether he had a current address for you. Your first postcard was postmarked January 7th. I'm sorry, Hattie. He knew something had changed before you did. I sat very still. The ticking of the wood stove was loud. I would like to ship you something. A box, some documents. I would prefer to do it certified mail with signature confirmation. Mr. Thorne, they tried to find me. Hattie! Your grandparents wrote you every month for 19 years. Every month. Every month. I was breathing through my nose, the way Dr. Wren had taught me evenly. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. I never got any of them. I know, he said. I have all the returned envelopes. I could not speak. Hattie, if it is all right with you, I will ship the box first. Then I will come up to Asheville. I should do this in person. Yes, I said. I hung up. I sat in the back office for a long time. Daniel knocked very lightly on the door frame 20 minutes later. He had heard my breathing pattern through the wall. He sat down on the storyteller's chair across from me and waited, I told him. The next day at 4 in the afternoon, a FedEx truck pulled up. The driver wheeled in a cedar box about the size of a small suitcase, banded in clear tape, wrapped in a separate plastic outer shell. I signed for it. I gave him a Thornberry Books bookmark as a tip. We did not open it that day. That evening, the bookstore phone rang at 4:30. A woman's voice. Bright. Polite. Hi, I'm a customer. I was hoping to ask if you have any books on grandparenting. My son is going to be a father soon, and we want to be prepared. I waited. It's funny, what's the best title these days for, reconnecting? I knew the voice. I had heard it once, on a Christmas voicemail Cornelia had kept on the answering machine from 2005. Patricia had recorded it then to introduce herself to her new mother-in-law. I'd played it twice as a teenager before Cornelia caught me. The same vowel sounds, the same upward lilt at the end of each sentence. What's your name, ma'am? I asked. There was a tiny silence. Oh, I'd love to keep my privacy. That's all right. I'll set aside a copy of Grandparents' Day by Charlotte Zolotow for a Mrs. Patricia Brennan. You can pick it up at the counter. I heard the click before the line dropped. I told Daniel that night. He took my hand and said, She's scared. Yes. What do you want to do? I looked at the cedar box on the bookstore counter. 12 by 8. Hand cut. A small brass clasp. A faint smell of varnish even through the plastic. I want to open it tonight. We closed the shop at 9. Daniel made tea. We sat at the round oak table by the front window. The streetlights were on outside. The wood stove ticked. I unwrapped the box. It was heavier than I had expected. Made of cedar with a grain that ran in a slow wave. The clasp was tarnished, but well oiled. I had a sudden memory of Edmund whittling a wooden bird on his porch when I was 6. He had said, "Hattie, the prettiest thing in the world is wood that has been waiting." I opened the lid. There were 3 layers. The top layer was a manila folder labeled, in fountain pen ink, Ashby versus Larkspur, custody petition, Buncombe County Court, 2004 to 2005. The middle layer was a stack of envelopes, banded with twine. The top envelope had a red stamp on it. Refused. Return to sender. The bottom layer was a single DVD case with handwriting on the spine. Edmund, for Hattie, June 2020. I opened the manila folder first. Paper clipped to the cover was a note in Atticus's hand. Edmund carried the cedar box into every custody hearing. Martin and Patricia saw it every time. The brass plate underneath bears the Ashby initials. It was 120 pages thick. There was a petition my grandparents had filed 2 months after my mother's funeral. There was an opposition brief my father had filed. Attached to it as an exhibit was a sworn affidavit. It accused my grandparents of being mentally unstable. It said Edmund had made veiled threats against me. It said Florence had once been admitted to a psychiatric hospital. A lie. The affidavit was signed by my father, Martin Larkspur. The witness signature beneath his read in a round, assertive cursive. P. Brennan, Charlotte, North Carolina. Patricia, 2 months before her wedding to my father. Already lying for him. The judge's order was paper clipped to the back. Custody awarded to biological father Martin Larkspur. Motion of petitioners Edmund and Florence Ashby denied. Petitioners ordered to pay court costs. Behind the order was a 1-page correspondence stipulation filed after the hearing. Martin had designated P.O. Box 1147 in Charlotte as the only address through which Edmund and Florence were allowed to contact me. His signature was at the bottom. A second card, dated 4 months later, listed Patricia Brennan as an authorized collector. Martin controlled the address. Patricia emptied the box. I closed the folder. I lifted the middle layer. There were 228 envelopes. 19 years of envelopes, from March of 2004 through February of 2023. Most were addressed in Edmund's looping blue handwriting. The later ones, after he died, were in Florence's smaller, neater hand. Every envelope had been sent to the same Charlotte correspondence address. Every envelope had come back. Everyone carried the same stamp or handwritten instruction across the address line. Refused. Return to sender. The handwriting on the note was the same, page after page. Round, slanted slightly forward. Assertive. I took out one envelope. I opened the seal of another, less yellowed one, dated March 2015, the month after Cornelia died. A short letter inside. Hattie, We do not know if you are still in Charlotte. We do not know if you have ever read one of these, but we are still here. We have a cabin in Black Mountain, west of where you were born. We keep your room ready. Grandma F. I put the letter down. Daniel reached for my hand. I was not crying yet. I was too quiet to cry. I pulled out the locked drawer of papers I had taken from Cornelia's house in 2015 and never understood. The small folded note Cornelia had marked, "Do not give Hattie." A Christmas card Patricia had signed to my paternal aunt in 2008, "Wishing you joy, dear love Patricia." I laid the Christmas card next to one of the returned envelopes. The R's matched. The slant matched. The pressure of the downstroke on the T's matched. It was Patricia's handwriting. For 19 years, the correspondence address my father created had been a trap. Martin controlled the box. Patricia collected the mail. The refusals were in her handwriting. Cornelia had taught me my grandparents had forgotten me. Martin and Patricia made sure my grandparents never had the chance to prove otherwise. I pulled the DVD out next. We watched it that night in our living room above the shop. We did not bring popcorn. We did not turn out the lights. Edmund was 84. He was sitting in a rocking chair beside a stone fireplace. There were quilts behind him. He held the camera up himself. He said, Hattie. I always wanted to call you Eliza because it was your mother's middle name, but she chose Hattie for you. She said Eliza sounded too serious for someone who would grow up making us laugh." He cleared his throat. "If you are watching this, sweetheart, it means we never gave up. We wrote you every month. Your father told the judge that we were unstable. We were not. Your grandmother and I taught middle school English for 40 years. We loved you every single day." He held up a small notebook. "I keep one of these for every year we have been separated. Every birthday, every Christmas, every Mother's Day. What we sent you, what we wrote. By the time we made this recording, we had sent 196 letters." He paused. The camera shook a little. "Your mother left me a note the morning before she died. We found it in her purse. She wrote, 'Daddy, if anything ever happens to me, fight for her. Don't let him have her. He'll let her down. We fought, Hattie. We lost. We kept fighting in letters.'" He read one out loud. A letter from 2012 when I was 16. "Granddaughter, the maple in our front yard is taller than your grandmother. She says it's because we keep telling it stories about you. There is a flat stone under it where we hide a small box. Inside the box is a little wooden mouse I carved when you were 3. It is still waiting for you. We are still waiting for you. Grandpa E." He stopped reading. He looked into the camera for a long time. "Hattie, the cabin is yours. The wooden mouse is yours. Your grandmother has knitted one baby blanket each year since 2005, in case. There are 16 in the cedar chest now. She says the smallest one is the prettiest. Whatever you choose to do with us, we have been with you. Grandpa E." The recording ended. The living room was completely silent. I cried for the first time in 22 years. I cried with my face pressed against Daniel's chest, the way I had not been allowed to cry against any adult. Since I was 8 years old, I had spent 22 years believing they had abandoned me. I had been wrong about the worst thing I had ever believed. We sat with the box open on the coffee table for another 2 hours. I opened more letters. They were ordered by date in the original twine binding. Edmund had numbered each envelope on the back in small pencil, 1, 2, 3, so I could read them in sequence if I ever wanted to. I picked one from the year I turned 10. Hattie! There is a small bird at our feeder this morning that I do not recognize. Your grandmother thinks it is a Carolina wren, but she is wrong. The throat is too pale. We are going to look it up in the Peterson Guide after breakfast. We thought you might want to know. Grandpa E. I picked another from when I was 13. Hattie, your grandmother has made a list of every book she has ever wanted to read with you. There are 87 titles. We will keep reading them in advance, in case we ever get the chance. Grandpa E. I picked one more. From 2020. Edmund's last letter. Mailed 3 weeks before he died. Granddaughter. I am old now. Your grandmother says I have been old for a while, but I refuse to admit it. The Cardinals are back at the feeder. We have a new bird bath. I love you. I have loved you every day. Grandpa E. I held the letter for a long time. Daniel finally said, "Do you want to keep reading?" I shook my head. I want to save them. I want to read them slowly. 1 a week. There are 19 years here. I want to feel them all. He nodded once. He closed the box gently. He carried it to a high shelf in our bedroom, where it would be safe until morning. The next morning, I emailed Atticus Thorne. I asked if he would come to Asheville. I asked if he could bring anything else. He arrived 2 days later, on a Wednesday at 9 in the morning. He was about 70. He wore a gray cardigan and carried a brown leather briefcase that had been restitched at the hinges. He set the briefcase on our kitchen table upstairs. He took out a folder and slid it toward me. "Your grandparents' bank statements," he said. 14 years. The legal fees nearly ruined them. They had $878,000 in retirement assets in 2004. By 2018, they had $340,000 left. The rest went to attorneys, investigators, 1 appeal, and 2 later petitions to modify custody. After Martin left you with Cornelia, he told the court she was only a temporary caregiver while he worked out of state. He kept the post office box as the only approved contact address and refused to disclose where you were living. By the time an investigator traced Cornelia's house, she had been told not to let Edmund or Florence speak to you. Without your testimony, and with Martin's original affidavit still in the record, the court treated every new petition as a continuation of the same old dispute. They lost every one, they never stopped. He took out a second folder. The will, drafted by me in 1998, updated 4 times, signed by Edmund in 2017 and witnessed in my office, signed by Florence in 2022. He said a single sheet on top. Sole beneficiary, Hattie Larkspur, granddaughter, residing wherever she may be located, with no conditions on contact with her paternal family. Trust amount, after final accounting, $480,000. The cabin in Black Mountain, deeded outright. Title transfers to you on signature. I held the page in my hands. Atticus took out a small brass key on a leather cord. He set it gently on the table between us. They asked me to give this to you. They asked me not to mail it. Daniel and I drove up to Black Mountain that afternoon. The cabin was a 2-story timber frame on a quarter-mile lane lined with old apple trees. The porch wrapped around 3 sides. There was a swing on the south side, the chains stained with weather. I unlocked the front door. The hinge was newly oiled. Inside there was a living room with a stone fireplace, a small kitchen, a staircase to the 2nd floor. We went up. There were 3 doors. The middle door had a small wooden plaque hanging from a brass hook. Carved letters, painted in pale blue. Hattie's room. I opened the door. There was a single bed against the window. A blue quilt lay across the bed. On the pillow was an embroidered date, March 20th, 1996, my birthday. Beside it sat 18 more pillows, each stitched with a birthday from 2005 through 2022. The first had been made when I was born. The other 18 had been made after I disappeared from their lives. On the bookshelf beside the bed, Charlotte's Web, Bridge to Terabithia, from the mixed-up files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler, A Wrinkle in Time. The same books Edmund had bought me one Christmas at age 7 before my mother died. The exact editions. On the bedside table, a folded letter dated July 2022. Hattie, if you ever come home, look in the attic chest. The mouse is in there. So is everything else. Grandma F. I sat on the bed. I cried for the 2nd time in 22 years. Daniel sat next to me. We climbed up to the attic an hour later. There was a cedar chest under the eave. I lifted the lid. Inside, a cardboard box marked Lorelei, my mother's name. I opened it. There were photographs, hundreds of them. My mother as a baby. My mother in high school, my mother holding a stuffed rabbit. My mother on her wedding day, holding my father's hand. My mother holding me at 5 days old. My mother on her 30th birthday. The same age I was about to turn. Smiling. Younger than I had ever known her. There were 19 baby blankets folded beneath the photo box, each tagged with a year, each in a different color. There was a small carved mouse with a chip out of one ear. I held it in my palm for a long time. I held it the whole drive back to Asheville. Daniel did not interrupt the silence. Before we left the cabin that day, I walked through every room. The downstairs library had 2 reading chairs in front of the fireplace. There was a small writing desk under the window. On the desk sat a leather-bound notebook with the spine cracked from use. I opened it. It was a journal Florence had kept. Almost every entry began the same way. Hattie is 15 this year. Or Hattie is 20 this year. Hattie is 25 this year. And on her birthday, I baked the cake we would have given her, and Edmund ate his slice on the porch in the rain. The notebook had been kept faithfully every year. The last entry was dated December of 2022, 2 months before Florence died. The handwriting was thin. It read, Hattie is 26. The maple has lost its leaves. We are still waiting. We are still here. I put the notebook back. I closed the desk. I touched the chair where she must have sat. We locked the cabin. We drove down the gravel lane in silence. The apple trees were bare. When we got home, I went into our bedroom and sat on the bed. I'm going to invite him to the bookstore, I said. Daniel looked at me through the mirror over the dresser. He nodded once. Tell me what you need. I told him. I wrote my father a postcard the next morning. a plain white card with no design on the front. In my own handwriting, careful and steady. Dad, I've been thinking about your letters. Come to my 30th birthday at Thornberry Books, Saturday, March 21st at 4 in the afternoon. Bring Patricia. We need to talk. Hattie. I mailed it from the post office on Walnut Street. 3 days later, Martin replied with 3 voicemails in a single afternoon. The first one was a small, careful, "Hattie, this is your dad. Thank you, baby." The second one was longer, where he had clearly rehearsed. "Patricia and I are honored. We will bring her lemon tart. We can't wait." The third one was for logistics. "Should I park in the lot off Walnut?" Daniel listened to them with me. He did not say anything. Postcard number 29 arrived that Friday, the latest in the stack of 30. "Hattie, I want you to understand. I was protecting you from their cult-like behavior. They tried to take you. I am so glad we can finally talk." Cult-like behavior? I said the words out loud, very quietly. They had been middle school English teachers. The next Tuesday, the bell over the front door rang in the middle of the afternoon, between customer waves. Patricia walked in alone. She was wearing a cashmere sweater, cream, sleeves pushed up to the elbows, a double strand of pearls, soft makeup. She looked younger in person than the wedding photo had suggested. She looked like someone who taught Pilates. She did a half-turn at the door, smiling at the children's section. "Oh, what a beautiful little shop. I've been hearing about it." I came around the front counter to meet her. The cedar box was on the round oak table in the middle of the room. We had moved it there yesterday. She took 3 steps in. She glanced at the table. She stopped. Her face went pale under the makeup. The smile stayed on, but the edges flattened. "Where did you get that?" she said, quietly. I waited a beat. "From my grandparents." She did not move. From Edmund and Florence Ashby, through their attorney." Patricia's hand went to her pearls. I should be going," she said. "I just wanted to say hello. I'm so excited for Saturday." She walked out. The bell rang behind her. Through the window, I watched her sit in the driver's seat of her gray sedan for almost 90 seconds. Her phone was at her ear the whole time. Then she pulled out into traffic. 2 hours later, my father texted my cell phone. The first time in 17 years he had used my number. "Honey, are you sure about Saturday?" "Maybe a private dinner is better." I typed back, "I'm sure. See you at 4. The phone went still for 10 minutes. Then it rang. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was new. He had stopped trying to be sweet. "Hattie, sweetheart. Patricia is shaken up. She thinks you got the wrong impression about some old paperwork. I'd really like for us to sit down, just the 3 of us, before any other family gets pulled in. Privately. Saturday is a lot of people. I think we can clear this up over coffee." I deleted the message. I called Atticus instead. I asked him to bring 2 more documents on Saturday. He said he would. He asked me how I was sleeping. I told him I had slept 4 hours the night before. He said, "Your grandfather did not sleep either the week he filed his first petition. He told me he kept hearing your mother's voice." I did not respond. I had not known that. He said, "Hattie, you do not have to do this in public." I said, "Mr. Thorne, my grandparents were called unstable by my father in a public courtroom. They could not defend themselves in public. I am going to defend them in public." He was quiet for a moment. "All right, dear. I will be there at 3:30. I will bring everything we have. Daniel locked the front door at 6. We went home, ate dinner, and slept badly. The cedar box sat on a high shelf in the back office under a folded quilt. Atticus had called twice to confirm he would be there at 3:30. He had also confirmed that a reporter from Mountain Express named Jenna would arrive at 3:45 with our blessing. She had requested a feature on Thornberry Books' first anniversary, and we had said yes. Saturday morning was clear, cold for late March. Forsythia along the sidewalks of Lexington Avenue was just starting. Daniel got up at 6. He drove to the bakery on Charlotte Street. He brought back a red velvet cake. He made a pot of coffee. He set out the baby blue balloons we had bought weeks ago when the birthday felt like a normal birthday. He hung a small banner across the children's section that read, "Happy Birthday, Hattie," in gold script. I dressed in dark green corduroy, a maternity dress my mother-in-law Marjorie had sewn for me. I put my hair in a low knot. I put on a pair of small silver earrings my grandmother had once mailed me when I was 13, in an envelope I had never received. Florence had also bought a second pair. They had been waiting in the attic chest. We opened the store at noon. The morning customers came and went. 2 regulars asked about the balloons. We said, "Family birthday, small thing." They smiled and left us be. At 3:30, Atticus arrived. He was dressed in a navy 3-piece suit. He carried the brown leather briefcase. He set it on the small chair beside the round oak table without opening it. At 3:45, Jenna walked in. She had a notepad. She introduced herself to Atticus politely. She nodded to Daniel. She did not ask any questions. She knew enough to wait. At 3:55, a charcoal gray sedan pulled into the parking spot directly in front of the bookstore. Patricia opened the passenger door first. She paused on the sidewalk for a half second, smoothing her camel-colored coat. My father followed. He was in a navy suit. His hair was thinner than the wedding announcement photo. His tie was patterned with small daffodils. The bell rang. He took 2 steps inside, opened both arms, and said it loud enough for the whole room. "There's my girl." I crossed to him. I let him hug me. He smelled like aftershave. I stepped back. "Thank you for coming, Dad. Patricia, please come in." Patricia entered. She did not look at the round oak table or the cedar box. She kept her eyes on the children's section banner. Marjorie and Frederick, my in-laws, stood up from where they had been seated and crossed to greet my father. Marjorie offered her hand. Frederick gave a small nod. He did not smile. I introduced everyone slowly. The 2 staff, Lila and Toby. My closest friend from college, Marisol. 3 other friends from the Asheville bookshop community. Jenna from Mountain Express. Atticus Thorne, family attorney. Martin's eyebrow moved when he heard the word attorney. Just once. He smoothed it back. Daniel set a glass of water in front of him. Patricia accepted a sparkling cider in a champagne flute. We made small talk for almost 12 minutes. Daniel asked Patricia about her drive. Marjorie asked Martin about Charlotte. Martin spoke easily about a sales conference he had just hosted in Greenville. He was charming. He kept looking at my belly with practiced softness. I let him. At 4:10, I cleared my throat. "Thank you all for coming. Before we cut the cake, I want to share something with you about our family." The room quieted. The forsythia was still bright in the window. Martin sat forward. Pumpkin, let's not air laundry today. Let's just enjoy each other. It's not laundry, Dad. I picked up the cedar box from the floor beside the round oak table. I set it on the table itself. I unlatched the brass clasp. My father saw the box. His smile cracked first, not all at once. The corners stayed up for 2 breaths. Then his eyes shifted. Then his hand, the one not holding the water glass, moved very slowly to the edge of the table to brace himself. Atticus stood up from his chair and walked to my side. I took out one envelope. This is a letter from my grandfather Edmund, postmarked October 2009. The address says Hattie Larkspur, P.O. Box 1147, Charlotte, North Carolina. The correspondence address my father put into the custody file, and it came back here. I turned it over. Stamped refused. Return to sender. Patricia's hand stayed at her pearls. She said, Hattie, you don't know, back then anyone could have returned that, the mail system, the postman, my mother-in-law. I lifted out 4 more envelopes. These are letters from 2010, 2011, 2013, and 2015. All addressed the same way. All refused. All in the same handwriting. I spread them in a fan. I lifted out one more thing. The Christmas card from 2008 that Cornelia had locked in her drawer. Patricia, this is a card you sent my Aunt Bernadette in 2008. You signed it. May I read your signature aloud, or would you like to confirm the handwriting yourself? Patricia did not say anything. Atticus stepped forward. He held up a small folder. I am Atticus Thorne. I represented Edmund and Florence Ashby for 38 years. I have notarized comparison of the handwriting on every envelope in this box. The handwriting is consistent. The handwriting belongs to one person. He set the folder down. That person is Patricia Brennan Larkspur. Patricia put her hand over her mouth. Martin tried to speak. She's confused. She's been overwhelmed. She's pregnant. Dad. I did not raise my voice. Sit down. He sat. I lifted out the DVD case. This is the last recording my grandfather ever made. He was 84. 6 months later, he died. He believed I would never see this. My grandmother kept the disc for 3 years. She gave it to Mr. Thorne on her own deathbed. I set the DVD on the table. The room had gone almost completely silent. Marjorie's hand was on Frederick's. The only sound was the kettle still ticking down on the back warmer. I did not press play. I did not have to. Martin's mouth opened. He said in the voice of a man who had not practiced this line, She made this up. He repeated it louder. She has always exaggerated. Her mother was the same way. The room flinched. Jenna, the reporter, had not lifted her pen for 2 minutes. She did so now, very slowly. She wrote one word. Atticus opened his briefcase. He took out 2 documents. He set them in front of my father. This is a formal no-contact notice from Hattie's counsel. From today forward, all communication with her must go through my office. Any direct contact will be documented. He laid the second document beside it. This is the final distribution statement for the Ashby estate. Edmund and Florence named Hattie their sole beneficiary. The estate, the cabin, and its records belong to her. Neither of you has any claim to any part of it. Patricia stood up. Her cashmere sleeve caught on the edge of the chair. She freed it without looking down. I need a lawyer, she said. Her voice was different now. Lower. Thinner. "I'm going." She walked past Martin without touching him. The bell rang as she opened the front door. She closed it behind her without turning around. Martin sat alone in the middle of the bookstore. I did not move. He looked up at me. His face had nothing on it. I put my hand on my belly. I felt the baby move once. A small foot under my palm. I waited. The bookstore was so quiet. You could hear the radiator click upstairs. It was 4:45. Patricia's car had already pulled out of the parking lot. Marjorie rose from her chair and crossed to me. She put her arm around my waist. Frederick rose too and stood at Daniel's shoulder. Marisol moved to the children's section and sat on a low chair, her hand over her mouth. Lila and Toby stood quietly by the back counter. Jenna kept her pen down. My father stood, slowly, like an old man. He walked toward me. He kept his palms out and open. "Hattie, Pumpkin, we can fix this privately. The two of us, father to daughter." I looked at him. I did not raise my voice. I did not look away. "You stopped being my father when I was 8. Then you left me with your mother and let her raise me as an unwanted thing. You built the address that kept my grandparents away. And you let Patricia send 228 letters back to the people who lost everything trying to reach me. Then you spent 2 months sending pastel postcards because you thought there was something left for you to take. The smile, Dad. It cracked before any of us said a word." He swallowed. "I never wanted their money." "Then why are you here?" He did not answer. I waited for a full breath. "You can leave now." He turned slowly toward the door. He took 1 step. He turned back. He pointed at my belly. "She's still my blood, Hattie. The baby, she's mine too." Frederick, my husband's father, stepped forward. He is 66, and he has never raised his voice in the 7 years I have known him. He stepped between me and my father. His shoulders were squared. His voice was low. "She is not, we are." Marjorie stepped to his side. Daniel stepped to mine. My father looked at the 4 of us. Then he looked at Atticus. Then he looked at Jenna, who had begun very gently to write again. He walked out without saying another word. The bell rang. The forsythia in the window stayed bright. Jenna took 1 photograph through the glass. I stood for a moment with Marjorie's arm around my waist. The room exhaled at the same time. Lila pressed both hands to her mouth. Toby sat down on the lowest shelf of the cookbook section. Marisol came over and pressed her forehead against my shoulder for a count of 5, and then stepped back without trusting herself to speak. Atticus quietly closed his briefcase. He set the lid back on the cedar box, leaving the brass clasp open. "Hattie," he said, "your grandmother used to call this kind of afternoon a clean afternoon. Painful, but clean." I nodded. I did not trust my own voice for a beat. I reached into the cedar box. I took out 1 letter at random. I did not know which one. The envelope was dated September of 2010. I would have been 14. I opened it. I read aloud. "Granddaughter, the maple in our front yard has grown taller than your grandmother. She says it's because we keep telling stories about you. She is still knitting in her chair by the window every Sunday. She says the wool keeps her hands warm and her hands keep her heart warm. We do not know if you will get this letter. We do not know how to find you." but we keep writing. Grandpa E. The bookstore was crying, quietly. Marjorie's chin was on my shoulder. Frederick was holding Daniel's elbow. Marisol's face was in her hands. Lila was holding Toby's sleeve. Atticus had taken off his glasses. If you have ever been told that boundaries are unkind, that family means forgiving anything, I want you to remember the smile that cracked today. Boundaries are not punishment. They are the line between what hurt you and what you choose to grow now. Honor your line. Drop one word below for the person who taught you to draw it. We cut the cake at 5:15. Daniel served. Marisol poured sparkling cider into the champagne flutes. Marjorie brought small plates of red velvet to everyone. Atticus accepted a slice and ate it with a fork, slowly, the way men of his generation eat. Jenna ate a slice, standing up. I did not eat. I held the carved wooden mouse in my palm. I sat on the storyteller's chair. Daniel sat on the arm beside me. The cedar box sat closed on the round oak table. The forsythia outside the window had begun to glow in the late afternoon light. The Mountain Express article appeared online the next morning. Jenna wrote it carefully. The headline, Asheville bookstore owner opens 19-year-old box at birthday reunion and quietly ends a family lie. The Charlotte Observer picked it up 2 days later. The Greensboro News and Record ran a follow-up profile on Edmund and Florence Ashby, retired middle school English teachers who had bankrupted themselves trying to find their granddaughter. Patricia filed for divorce the following Tuesday. She moved back to her parents' house in Atlanta. Her brother, a quiet man named Henry Brennan, who had not spoken to Patricia in years, sent me a brief note through Atticus, apologizing on behalf of the family. My father lost his sales position the next week. The company released a one-line statement to a Charlotte business journal. Mr. Larkspur is no longer employed at this firm. His sister, my Aunt Bernadette, called me on a Sunday in late March. She apologized for 20 years of silence. She did not ask for anything. I listened. I did not promise her anything. I told her I would write when I was ready. She said she would wait. Aunt Bernadette called me again on a Sunday afternoon 2 weeks after the birthday. She had read both the Mountain Express piece and the Charlotte Observer follow-up. She wanted to tell me, before anyone else did, that she had known about the letters being returned. Not all of them, but enough of them. She had once, in 2007, found a returned envelope in Cornelia's sewing room wastebasket and had asked Cornelia about it. Cornelia had told her that Edmund and Florence were sending trash mail. Bernadette had wanted to believe that. She had needed to believe that. She had 4 children. Her husband worked nights. She did not have the money to be in the middle of a family war. She said very softly, Hattie, I was not brave. I will not pretend I was. I am sorry. I will not ask you to forgive me. I am calling because I do not want to be a person who never said it out loud. I listened. I said, Thank you, Aunt Bernadette. I will write you when I'm ready. She said, I will wait. I hung up. Daniel was on the porch swing. I joined him. He did not ask what she had said. He waited. In April, Daniel and I gave our notice on the Asheville apartment. Marjorie and Frederick helped us pack the bookstore's stock. We moved up to Black Mountain the second weekend in April. Atticus came up for the deed signing on a Wednesday. He brought a small bunch of yellow tulips from his wife's garden in Greensboro. He set them in a mason jar on the porch railing. He stayed for tea. We painted the small bedroom upstairs a pale blue. We laid the smallest of the 19 baby blankets, the one Florence had knit in 2005, the year she first started, across the foot of the new crib. Daniel hung a framed print of an old maple tree over the changing table. He had taken the photograph himself in October in the front yard of the cabin. In May, Daniel built a porch swing to replace the weather-stained one. He used the boards from a fallen oak Edmund had begun to cut into planks years before and never finished. The new swing creaked the right way on the first push. I delivered my daughter on the 3rd of June, 2026, 3 weeks early. Healthy, 6 pounds, 12 ounces. Daniel cried for the second time I had ever seen. We named her Lorelei Florence Easton. I rocked her on the porch swing on a clear evening at the end of June. The maple tree by the lane was just beginning to leaf out fully. The wooden mouse sat on the swing arm beside us. The cedar box was on a small side table within reach. I had opened it once that morning to read the letter Edmund had written the week I turned 22. It was about a thunderstorm that had broken 3 pots of his tomatoes and a single rose he had managed to save by carrying it indoors at midnight. He had ended the letter the way he ended every letter. We love you. We are still here. Daniel was inside making dinner. The bookstore had been closed for 2 months and would reopen in July. We had hired a part-time staff person who lived in town. Marisol drove up from Asheville every Wednesday with sandwiches and stayed to help me hang the new shelving in the children's section. Marjorie and Frederick came on Sundays. Frederick mended the cabin's back porch railing with new cedar boards. Marjorie cooked a roast every other week. I held my daughter against my shoulder. I said very quietly, "When you're older, I'll open this box for you. I'll tell you everyone in it. Then I'll teach you something my father never learned. Family is what you keep, what you fight for, what you stitch and write and carve and wait for, not what you walk away from." She slept against my collarbone. The maple was quiet. The mouse was waiting. So was I.